Okay, so hello everybody. One more change to the fire signs. Realise that the Super Pentecost is not the next occurring Pentecost after going back 7 times of 1 Kings 18. It is the next completing Pentecost after going back 7 times. So it's not the first one to occur, which has a whole bunch of late ones after it. It's the first one to occur, which when you've taken all the late ones into account, finishes first, or is in fact a 7th of a 7th. So what that means is that whereas the 2NC Pentecost on Heshvan 21, 2019, is the result of going back 7 times of 2NC Pentecosts from 2012, Chislev 21, when we were appointed over the 2NCs in Zoa and went up to the top of Mount Carmel Garden Land in accordance with 1 Kings 18:40 odd. Although the first one to occur is the 2NC Pentecost, the trouble is there's a late version all the way up to Nisan 21 when the third fire sign occurs, which is the 7th of a 7th, being the 7th day of 7th Cakes Booths. There are several that occur after Heshvan 21 but finish before Heshvan 21. So they are candidates if and only if they have a Pentecost on the 7th of a 7th for a Super Pentecost. And the third marriage Pentecost was Chislev 6, which isn't the 7th of a 7th. And the fourth marriage Pentecost was Tebeth 11, which isn't the 7th of a 7th. And the fifth marriage Pentecost was Shabbat 9, which isn't the 7th of a 7th. And the late partakers marriage Pentecost was Adar 7, which is the 7th of a 6th. But the late version of that Pentecost is Nisan 7, which is the 7th day of the 7th month of the Tishri 1 year. And that's the completion of that Pentecost. So, what you do is you go on a hunt. You go back 7 times to the Pentecost. Then you find the next Pentecost after that, which is the 7th of a 7th, basically. Although having said that, Heshvan 21 itself, 2019, is a Sabbath, 7th day of the week. It's in fact the 7th day of the 7th whole week of the Tishri 1 year. But that doesn't appear to count for some reason, which I haven't quite yet understood. Perhaps 7th of a day of a 7th week doesn't mean anything much. It's going to be 7th day of a month, a proper calendar 7th of a 7th, or 7th day of a festival, either a calendar or festival version perhaps. But I don't know. Anyway, we've got the 7th of Nisan, which is the late partakers marriage Pentecost. It's the late version of the late partakers marriage Pentecost on Adar 7. So that's now the second fire sign. And we've gone for a Nisan 6 or Nisan 7 in case it occurs on the 7th Sabbath of that late Pentecost. Not that there is such a thing really as a 7th Sabbath of the regular Pentecost. So it's the late partakers marriage Pentecost, Nisan 7, 2020. There is no 7th Sabbath of that because it's just the late version of the Adar 7 Pentecost. So the second sign is predicted actually for 2020 Nisan 7, and the third fire sign is predicted for 2020 Nisan 20 or 21. Again, it's either the 5th 2NC Pentecost on Nisan 21 or the 7th Sabbath thereof, which is the 7th Sabbath counting from first fruits of Adar 2. So that's the quick change. And now the other change we've made is the Great Tribulation does not begin on Nisan 5. It's fairly obvious that the Great Tribulation is the last 24 days of the 42 days of World War III, because the war, when it reaches its climax, becomes nuclear, and when you stop the war, you stop the nuclear war, and when you stop the nuclear war, you stop the war, because people by then have gone nuclear. And Jesus does say, unless those days are cut short, no flesh would be saved. And so you cut the days short, both conventionally and nuclear-wise, on the same day, presumably. I mean, I'm just speaking logically. If you imagine what people will do, it eventually becomes nuclear, and then they have to stop it. And then they don't just stop the nuclear war and somebody else continues conventionally, because otherwise somebody would say, well, I'll nuke you then. So basically, you've got to stop the whole war in order to stop the nuclear war. War has to end completely, totally, and I believe the John Lennon day, when war is no more and war ends, is ER 8, which is May 1-2, 2020. it could be ER14 because World War III begins on Adar 27, which equals Nisan 3. So if you count it from Nisan 3, you end up on ER14. If you count it from Adar 27, you end up on ER8. I think it counts from Adar 7 because the Great Tribulation is the last 24 days of it, and that has to begin in winter time. And if it ends on ER14, the World War, then the Great Tribulation would begin on Nisan 21, which is not in winter time. Winter time, Hebrew winter time, is before first fruits, and first fruits is Nisan 18. But if World War III ends on ER8, then it will begin the Great Tribulation 24 days prior to that, which is Nisan 15, which is 3 days before spring and summertime of one's first fruits. The Hebrew summer is from first fruits to booths, which is last fruits, if you like. It's the harvest period. So those are the changes we've made. We've changed the second fire sign from being Nisan 20 to being Nisan 7, and we've changed the Great Tribulation. Instead of starting on Nisan 5, we now have it starting on Nisan 15 and running for the last 24 days of World War III, which we now have ending on ER8, which is 42 days inclusively after Adar 27, 2019, rather than 42 days inclusively after Nisan 3, 2020, which equals Adar 27. And there is the rather technical latest chronology. Thank you very much.